I'm Joshua, and I'm an INTP. And first and foremost, I would like to say thank you for viewing this video and subsequently visiting my channel. The topic of this video will be on ENFJs. And so I will begin this analysis with saying that the dichotomous view of the ENFJ is qualitative, meaning that they're individuals that perceive meaning before objects within reality. They are ones who take and step out into the world and try to understand it from a standpoint of the existential items and properties that are out in the space of the information that's in nature and communities. And so, first and foremost, the ENFJ is a dominant extroverted feeler. So they're an individual that is of an external nature. Their concerns and their processes of meaning come from the connectivity to themselves and things in the world. So they're concerned about the self's relation and orientation to others, mainly the broader ethos in community, much like the INFJ. However, the ENFJ is someone who lives fundamentally for the community and lives fundamentally in their makeup in terms of the emotional landscape and salience for others and other things. Other things are what creates the permutations of realizations, realities, aspects and factors of their thoughts, their movements, and their positions in the world. They are the individual that takes the outer collection of the world and brings it inside. They want to take the insides and put it outside, and take the outside and bring it inside to create meaning for their movement. For the world, for the ENFJ, is a palette of inspiration. They seek to be inspired because they have a maxim to be trailblazing, moral, and ethical agents that sit at the head of a community to direct its nature, its maxims, its gospels, and its understandings of its communalization and its acting in a brotherhood sense of reality in the world. They are the type, like the INFJ, that is so close to the fraternity of humanity. They care about meaning in its respect to what am I to my fellow man? Who am I to my fellow man? Who am I to direct them and help them achieve things, while aspirationally seeking for the highest good I can attain for others and myself. ENFJs are the types that want to step forth and taste the world with such vigor, zest, and zeal due to the extroverted sensation that is in them. They are someone who is fundamentally excited about reality and stack high on the traits of enthusiasm and assertiveness in the extroverted types of characteristics. Not only this, they are prone to adventure, and they want to adventure out so that they can do something with the processing of the deep quality of the tendency for transient hypofrontality. ENFJs are ones that track and plod themselves through reality for people, but are stricken with the content of the creative space of the imaginative and summating factors of the tendency for introverted intuition to see the latent patterns and not so readily apparent aspects of reality. They see the significance to things and are fairly adept at implicit learning. They learn to understand the quality of language and its properties out in reality. They're quite articulate, and though they can be rather rambunctious in their communication, they hope that the words that come from their mouths have the meaning to heal the world and to direct things. They take no greater joy than instructing one and helping one see themselves. Helping one see themselves as it's a reflective lens for them in terms of how they're perceived out in the community. The ENFJ has this thing about, I see myself by the way I'm reflected from others. They know their harmonies and their similarities based on the properties of differences that are out in the world, but at the same time bringing those things to summate together under a ideal, because they have introverted thinking at the bottom of their functional stack. So they hope at the very least that there is some necessary universal truth in which they can stand upon to have a dream, metaphorically, like Martin Luther King said, to step out into the world and present it so that they can lead it in a very considerably meaningful direction. The ENFJ has this goal, this meta goal of being a meaningful creator for community. They wish to create meaning for the community so that they create meaning for themselves. Their most meaningful self is the self that's highestly related to the broader community and the possibilities that are in this. This is why they are the type that has one of the most pro-social ways of being for human existence. They have the innate responses to reciprocity and empathy. They have a quality of the theory of mind through the interaction between extroverted feeling and introverted intuition to know what one is thinking and to use what one is thinking to create the most impactful meaning and harmonies through using the agencies of emotive qualities and feeling tones to bring about persuasion. They wish to convince and to demonstrate to others what it is that they stand for and what it is that they think and they hope and they reason. And they want to use what they think, they hope, and they reason, the idealization of their various gospels and mandates to be a supplicating and edifying agency for people. Because they're a lot like the INFJ in the sense that whatever affirmities are out in the world, they would like to relieve them. They see the needs of others and want to meet them. They're also rather gregarious. They are so pro-social and funny. They don't mind playing the fool while being the scholar at the same time. They can be erudite and judicious, but at the same time never lose the mercy for justice. They will say that justice is the qualification of mercy in a certain way. See my fellow brethren as they suffer and see him as his highest self, or her as her highest self at the same time. Use these two distinctions to come to a realization of a higher law at which we should all subsume and govern ourselves by. ENFJs are said to be relativistic in their moral landscape, but the truth is that they do have innate values. The innate value for them, however, is the value of pro-sociality. They're prone. They have to be social. And social in the most general sense and probably most innate sense of the word, as they respect reciprocity and empathy. They want to reach out into the world with this hand or these tentacles or antennae of reciprocity and empathy to know, what do I do for others? What do I do for others so that I can get somewhere myself? They have a self-interest, and their self-interest is fairly staunch in their nature, as they have goals. They definitely have goals because they have a vision, and by way of their tendency to transient hypofrontality and being hit with sort of archetypal revelations about the whole making and mapping of the social space that they're in and how they fit in it, and they have a drive to they have a drive by way of extroverted sensing. They're competitive in a way and don't mind, but not in a not they can get kind of over competitive, but not in a way that's, not ethically founded. It's grounded by something. It's underneath and mediated by extroverted feeling and introverted intuition, but they're competitive and want to exert themselves in the world. There's a will to power in them, it's innately in them, but the will to power is one where they want to be a magister, royalty, a king-like, a sage, or a highest patron or benefactory sort of entity in the most romantic and poetic sense. They want this because they think that, keeping competency in mind and the greatest good or sort of beneficent, humanly kind qualities, they want to present God to man in a certain way. The idea of the good-natured, loving, forgiving, righteous, just, and gentle entity to mediate and be somebody who can work and wade through the waters of human conflict, because they don't like it. They don't like conflict, but they do understand that its propagation and arising in reality in communities demands or makes it necessary that an individual come and be a mediating element, an agent, and more so than a mediating element, an agent, but an individual who can inflict change and create reconciliation. They want to be change, and change in a pro-social way to reconcile differences, and it's a drive that's somewhat instantiated by introverted intuition's nature to be a mender of paradoxes. An ENFJ would love to be the type of person that can take two feuding tribes or two differing groups and help reconcile the two so that their differences be something that can be synthesized and sublimated to a greater whole, one that more people can come under, like the totalitarian nature that is of extroverted thinking, and be led and guided to a life of the greatest meaning specifically denoting or namely that the generative and life-affirming aspects of reality can be most facilitated for all those that subjugate themselves to it, because they are in some ways asking individuals to subjugate themselves to things. They're doing it by smiling, by laughing, and by congratulating, patting, hugging, sharing positive feelings, being enthusiastic and assertive. They're doing it through the functional nature of extroverted feeling, but they're doing it for what they think from the deepest sense of their rooted in their core by way of introverted thinking of the highest law or the moral responsibility for man to be his brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper is how the extroverted feeler is going to answer the question. And that's in reference to Genesis and God's question and Cain's question to God, am I my brother's keeper? Well, they are able. They're the ones that are willing to capitulate and make the necessary sacrifice to the logos or the highest good, and be smiled upon by the superego or the community or the greatest force. So they're fairly good at socially maneuvering and climbing up ladders of hierarchy when they're interested in such things, but they're also just as fully capable of being the shamanic bohemian New Ager and sage. They're like the Dalai Lama. They can be. That's one expression. Or Erasmus. Or Maya Angelou. In the sense that still I rise, but still I rise so that I can show you that you can rise. I rise so you can come to me and I can hold your hand. I can lead you. They're all so concerned with being a teacher for the world, teaching man to see himself in a certain way or see herself in a certain way so that there can be some prize to be attained. They're not all believers in utopias, but they do all have this thing about there's the best way for the world to be, in a sense. There's a way for people to come together and work together in such a manner that there can be only good derived from it. If we know how to speak to one another, if we can be kind and treat one another with the right amount of congeniality, not in a superficial way, but in the sense that you do use your manners as tools to help people have a better day. You do use your politeness and the different effects of what you have, because a smile can help somebody's day be better, because just like every NF, they have a serious existential burden that they face, but they overcome the existential burden, essentially the tragedy of existence, that bears itself so apparent to them, as they cannot ignore the fact that there are problems with the world. They know that people fight. They know that people are cruel. They know that people can be petty. They know that people have their nefarious and malevolent ways of being. But what they think is that if I can act in such a manner that my actions make it easier for a person to cooperate, that it makes it easier for them to be a good person, if I can be such an individual that causes my brother not to stumble and not to sin, I have lived a good life. And they want to live a good life, but a life nonetheless that is in service of the community and the needs of a community, through taking and trailblazing and moving up a hierarchy to stand at the top of it in their largest aspirations as somebody who's being inspired by the world, but is rightfully inspiring others to be their highest self. For the ENFJ, life is a palette of inspiration, and they do it through revelation and inspiration, and they would like nothing more to be an inspiration for others themselves, and that is why they are some of the like the INTJ, like the INFJ, ENFP, INFP, ENTJ, they're some of the most natural humanists you'll find of the 16 types. They are pro-human and they are pro-social. So, their place in the ecology of the phenomenological landscape is to be someone who continually pushes forward for all of mankind so that we keep ourselves and make it easier for us to exist with one another. And they do want to take this burden and this task upon themselves in some way, as they would just like to make it so that you could have a better day. in the simplest sense. So, um, their meta goal is to seek meaning through the inspiration that they receive from being with other people, and they would like to inspire you. And so hopefully that's been fair to the ENFJs, and that's my video on ENFJs. Thank you.